Hi there, welcome back to Tiffany's Books. I read books and I talk to you about them. Today I want to talk to you about Blood Over Bright Haven by Emma Wang. Oh my god, this book. Oh Jesus, this book. Okay, so I obsessed. All right, so let me be clear. I bought this today because I need to reread it. Oh, that's so shiny. I need to reread it and tab it and highlight it, and oh my god, because this book is like the most quotable thing that I've read in a while. The writing in this is stunning. I listened to this on audio though, so I want to reread it physically next year. I'm gonna try and do like a reread a month, and this is gonna be one of them. I'm obsessed, like hardcore obsessed with this book. So I listened to this on audio last week. I finished it. Has not left my brain, constantly in my brain. The audio narrator is Moira Quirk, and hats fucking off. Her narrating, I have not listened to something she narrates yet that I have disliked. So let's get into it. I'm gonna have a little shilling Diabolical. This is a very dry cider. But it's the day after Thanksgiving. I'm recording late, completely forgot I need to record. So here we are. Let's see. Let's do it this way. We're gonna give you a synopsis. I'm gonna give you a compile, and then I'm gonna give you some spoilers. So I'll mark clearly where the spoilers are so that you can leave, and I will not hold anything against you. But if you want spoilers and you're not someone who's bothered by that, or you've already read this and you want to hear my thoughts on the spoilers, I will have them. Gosh. Okay. All right. Little synopsis. This book is a fantasy. It kind of felt steampunky a little bit until they explained what was going on. So it's like industrial era fantasy. So it almost feels urban. We're doing a magic school. We're doing upper education. We're doing sexism, racism, colonialism, xenophobia, all the isms. Like we're getting into it. Okay. So our main character, Siona, is a mage, and she is the first female mage to get the ranking of high mage. So immediately we're off to something happening. Being a high mage, she gets into this illustrious branch of the government where she's not expecting to be accepted, but hopes that she will be accepted. Her first day there, the men already there do not accept her in any way, shape, or form, and play a prank on her by being like, hey, that janitor that just gave you directions to your office, yeah, he's going to be your assistant because we really just couldn't find a male assistant willing to work with you. And she decides to roll with this, and she takes him into her office, and she decides he's going to be her assistant. So she spends a bit of time teaching him the basics of magic, how magic works, and that's how we get our introduction into this world in the magic system, which is a coding-based magic system, which is just such a cool idea. So she's teaching him and thereby teaching us. He is from a class or a race that is very looked down upon in this society. So she's from this city-state called Tehran, and he is Quen. He's from outside of the city walls and is very much a second-class citizen because of that, even so much more so because he's a man of that citizenship. He's viewed as being barbaric and unpredictable and angry and all of those other isms that tends to happen to people who get hit with systemic racism. So she has some of these views, not so much to the point where she doesn't think he's unteachable, but she very much believes that he's the exception to the rule. She's like, oh, you're so much better than the other Quen, right? So we're getting into that type of thing, while she's also experiencing systemic sexism. So we have kind of a double layered thing happening here. And so he ends up deciding he's going to go ahead and work with her because he doesn't have a choice. He does seem to kind of like her and appreciate her, be treating him like a decent person. And everything kind of spirals out from there. So she's basically got to make this proposal for a border expansion project, and she needs him to assist her. That's why he's going to just have to learn how to do this magic, how to work within the magic system, and she's going to have to deal with his help because she will need some help. So lucky for her, Siona is very, very intelligent, extremely so. She's also extremely motivated and dedicated. Her science is her science, because it's the magic, it's the science. It is her world. Like, it is everything to her. She wants nothing else than to be good at this. Coming from academia, I recognize this trait a lot. It definitely highlighted academic issues very, very well, and I was 100% here for it. As she starts digging into this border expansion project and how she's working with it and how the magic system works from her end, she discovers some deeply layered flaws in their system that kind of ends up spiraling into societal unrest. So that's the non-spoiler synopsis that I think a lot of the synopses online don't do justice, and a lot of the reviews that I saw before I read this. I saw people, because this has been out, this is the traditionally published version. This was independently published last year and got picked up. So this is the second publication. So I've seen reviews for this, and I saw people relating this to The Will of the Many. No. Just because they both have a magic school does not make these both no. Okay, no. I saw this as saying she was going to investigate a murder mystery, and no, not really. No. So, I, granted, am not very well read in the dark academia genre, but this does hit some of them. But I have read nothing like this at all. So, this delves so deeply into, like I was saying, sexism and racism, especially within government and society and academia. It really hits on the academia thing. There is a point too where we get some intersexual feminism down near the end, and Siona's character arc is just so good. She learns so much and grows so much, and it never once feels like it's giving her an excuse for her ignorance. Never does this give her an excuse, but never does it blame her, which is very interesting. It's very much as she's a product of her upbringing, and her upbringing is at fault, but she could have opened her eyes, but it's not really blaming, which is interesting to do. We also hit like appropriation and colonialism and like theft of cultures, like so hard and so good in doing it in a very interesting way. I thought it was interesting in the audiobook. Moira Quirk, probably because she's British, made an interesting choice to give Siona a British accent and to give the Quen Irish accents. The Quen also have red hair. And so that was kind of an interesting aspect to it, to do things that are very much not specific to one culture and another culture, but very much specific to the idea of colonialism as a whole. But for Moira Quirk to give an Irish accent to it, I think potentially made it more palatable to certain types of people. So that aspect was really interesting, and I would like to do some research. I just haven't had a chance. I just like to do some research on why that choice was made, but I have yet to see any interviews on it. So I'm very curious as to why that choice was made, because I think it was a very good choice for a couple different reasons. Also, Moira Quirk's narration is just really good. So let's do a quick compile, which is a rating system. So we have character. I've never done this here. I've done it on like Storygraph a few times, but I thought I would do it here because for me this is a 5. I mean, to be fair, all of these are probably going to be a 5 all the way down, but let me give you points of each of them. So Compile starts off with character. The characters in here are very three-dimensional. They have so many different motivations. Siona, for a lot of people, can seem very one-dimensional in her motivation, because her motivation is just to be the best, to be the very best that ever was. Like, she's honestly just wants to be the most respected. And when people are like, oh, you're doing such good work for like women in society, and she's like, no. I'm doing this for me. I just realized I'm at an angle. I apologize. I apologize. I'm at an angle. She's like, no. I'm doing this for me, so that I can have glory, because I want glory that men always get for being in my field. I want some of that. And I kind of love just the open honesty about that. Tommel, who is the man that is assisting her, he's the Quen man. Tamil, who is the Quen man that is assisting her, also has so many things going on. He's clearly like falling for Sayona. She's kind of getting feelings for him. We get a little bit of that, but he's also experiencing things that he was never allowed to experience by getting to learn this stuff that he has a very intuitive knack for. And we later find out why that is, and I just think it's fascinating. It's done so well. But he is understanding, he's calm, he's rational, because society forces him to be. Otherwise, he's considered dangerous. There's so many reasons why. He has so much motivation for his personality, but then we get to see flashes of the real him on occasion when he gets comfortable with Sayona. I just really love that. We also get to see a little bit of his niece, Kara, and I fucking love her. Absolutely love her. She's a fucking firecracker, and it's amazing. And he raised her on his own, so we get to see his influence on her, which I think is just so good. Other characters in here are very well done. Nobody is one-dimensional. Everybody has flaws. There are a lot of flawed characters, but I'll say a lot of the main characters have positives as well as flaws that we can see. And I just think they were really well done. Atmosphere is the next one. Atmosphere here is, like I said, it felt a little steampunk, but using magic instead of like gears and steam, which I think was really well done. We had a very strong feel of the city and the world, even though it was a very small world. And I think ML Wang just did a fantastic job of creating an environment with which all of this could happen and feel natural and consistent. W is writing. The writing in here, oh my god, I think ML Wang rivals V.E. Schwab for prose. But I was reading this, I read Addie LaRue right after this, like I'd listened to audio right after. I actually think sticking to the plot and keeping the prose, ML Wang's is like above. There's so many, like I said, there's so many things in here that are quotable. There's so many things that resonate, that get you that like gut tingle, like just that you feel so much in the story. And I cannot wait to read The Sword of Kaigen. The Sword of Kaigen. I just combined the two names. I can't wait to read it because I've been afraid of it because of the length, but if this is ML Wang's writing, I'm going to eat up every second of it. Every second. P is the plot. This is a very clear, concise plot. It goes from A to B to C. There is a twist of reveals, but then nothing where the plot ever goes. You expected where it went, but there's not a problem in it. I think thrillers, you shouldn't expect necessarily where it goes, but in a fantasy, it's perfectly reasonable to expect where the plot goes. I never felt like we weren't building up to something. I think we were always building towards a very clear and concise thing that was going to have to happen. And given the fact this is a story of a revolution, it definitely needed to happen the way that it happened. And I think the plot, every element did so good of building that plot up. Intrigue is the next one. I guess this one would maybe... There was so much political intrigue in this. I guess this may be the one that I could say it was probably like a 4 because I've read so much Robin Hobb and Joe Abercrombie and Jacqueline Carey this year that maybe political intrigue wise, this, if I'm looking at intrigue from a political intrigue standpoint, which is one of the things that keeps me the most gripped in these types of stories, there wasn't as much of it, but as far as keeping my attention, intrigue, piquing my interest, and that type of thing, I think that was a high point, but it depends on how you're using the definition of intrigue. So many characters have different motivations, and there was so much to keep you invested in the story. It really just depends on how you're using the word intrigue in this type of review system. Logic. Honestly, 10 out of 10. Everything that happened in here made sense, was given justification for. Everything was for a reason, and I think that is like all you can really want. And then enjoyment. I ate up every minute of this. I listened to it in 2 days. I just devoured this thing. Like, I could have immediately started it back up again, but I had like a notification. There were like 10 people in line. I got on Libby. There were like 10 people in line behind me, and I was like, no, you guys need to read this book. I'm not starting it over again because you guys need to read it. But I 100% could have started this book back over again and immediately just listened to it all over again. And there's been very few books this year that I've done that with. Gideon is probably one, Harrow is one, and The Mad Ship is another one where I could have been like, oh my god, but The Mad Ship, there was a third book that I could move on to right away. Gideon and Harrow reread, so I already knew it was going to happen. But I think for that one, the only reason I didn't, but when I listened to The Mad Ship again, which I listened to it again like 3 months later, I 100% could have been like, I'm gonna listen to that again. Like I could have listened to it a third time and been totally happy. This is another one that sits up in there. So 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10, 100%. I really, really recommend this. If you like fantasy that does something with aspects of, there we go. No, my lights. If you like something that does stuff with like aspects of society in your fantasy and has social commentary, but doesn't beat you over the head with it, you'll like this. I think if you really like Babel, this is for you. Like if you like Babel, you will like this. I think this is better than Babel. I think it's better. I think it does so much more and in such more of a clear and concise way, but it has a lot of beat points that I think are very similar. And maybe it's because this is a female character versus Babel is a male character that it's easier to like get so much out of it. That I can't get over how much I love this. So that was the non-spoiler section. I'm gonna move on quickly because I don't want to talk about this forever. Because I could. Honestly could. So this is the end of the spoiler-free section. The rest of this is going to be spoilers included. So if you don't want to be spoiled, go ahead and go. I don't mind. Please read this. Drop me a comment if you've read it and tell me what you thought about it. I really hope you add it to your list. Just read it. It's so good. It's so worth it. The audio is fantastic if you listen to audio, but this one is also could be great immersion read too, because it's just the audio narration is so good, but the story itself is so good. I went back and replayed things over and over again. All right, let's get to the spoilers. Okay, so here's the layers that made me just love this, like even more so than I already was. I was in it from like page 20 because I was like, oh my God, we're doing like feminine rage in academia. I'm so mad for Sayona. I want to stab people for her. Like everyone, she started off her test. They have to do this test to get into that, to get their high mage ranking. And she watched everybody. She was the last person. And then she goes up for her test, immediately give her one of the hardest problems from the last test as her first problem, or her second problem. Her first problem was fairly average. She did it exceedingly well. And they were like, let's make this harder. Let's give you one of the hardest tests we gave the other guys. So one of the guys had to do this thing where he had to split had to use magic to like split a line of granite down the middle. And instead they gave her obsidian, which is very hard, but also very brittle. So she had to do her calculations extremely precise, and she did it perfectly. And nobody believed that they thought she cheated or whatever. So they made it even harder for her. And she ends up passing, of course. But the way that it was in there, she was like, she did not think she passed because she broke some rules. She disobeyed when they told her, like some guy told her time was up, and she was like, no, I'm finishing this. I'm doing the task you gave me. And yeah, so she was like, oh, there's no way I passed. There's no way I passed. So she runs to the bathroom, has like a panic attack, ends up getting in. So she has this mentor that we meet, and he's like basically her father figure. So we find out that her mother died when she was young, and her father, who's on the city council, decided he didn't have time for a girl, so he gave her up to her mother's sister, and that's why her aunt and her cousin raised her. And they've kind of done everything for her. They've let her kind of they've let her indulge in her academic desires so that she could be this person that she is today. And it takes her until like the end of the book to kind of recognize how much she's taken from them, and in her goals to like her aspirations to be the top person, she has done exactly like the men do and has stepped on the women in her life and taken advantage of them. And it takes her till the end to like realize that she's done that. And I think that was like kind of a nice like acknowledgement, but it took till the end. So the other thing, her and Tommel figure out that the well of magic that they pull from is actually the Quen lands, and whenever they're pulling magic, they're taking apart a living thing, which it resembles exactly this thing called blight that is killing everyone outside of the city walls and is causing the tribal people, all the different believe they call them tribes or clans, to move in to the city, and where they are then basically exploited, paid lower wages, and live in the slums, and so that they can be free or cheap labor. So it's a double hit that the city-state is siphoning energy off of them in two ways. And obviously Tamil has like a huge explosion of rage to this, because in the very beginning of the book we get the scene of his brother-in-law and his sister being destroyed by this blight, and it literally gory and graphically like unravels the skin from their bodies, essentially. It's wild. And so Sayona, she has this whole scene that's so good where she refuses to believe. Tamil is like having a like PTSD episode, and she's like, no, you're wrong, and he continues to push her, actually, and pushes, and he's like, no, like, I am right, this is what's happening, you're so blinded. And she's like, no, because my mentor is such a kind person, there's no way he would be for this. And throughout the whole thing, she's consistently like, if I just show them, if they just know what they're doing, they wouldn't be doing it. There's no way that these people know it. And Tom was like, you don't understand. They know, because they don't treat us with any sort of respect. They think that we're this and we're that. And she's like, yeah, but some of them are, you're not. And he's like, oh, fuck you, Sayona, you don't understand. And it was like the best scene. That happens like 40%. The best fucking scene. It was so good. I was so mad. Like, I was so mad with Tamil at Sayona for not fucking getting it. And before that, I had previously been so mad for Sayona at the other people for like not fucking getting it. And I was just like, oh my god, this book is doing so much. Like, it's so good. So eventually Sayona decides she needs to like, okay, so after this whole scene, she goes back to her lab, and she has worked out a way that there's like a ring up top of a typewriter. So they put in their code, and the first part of the code is a map to pinpoint where they're going to siphon energy from, and the second part activates the spell and pulls the energy. So she figures out a way to map where she can actually see in color. And that's what happens where Tamil is able to see the blight. She like takes siphons from a plant, and he's like, oh my god, that's blight. Okay, so she's like, oh my god, that's blight. So she goes back to her lab, and she maps and finds people, and she's like, there's no way. And she siphons from, like, uses the points where that person would be and witnesses it, and she manages to stop it before the person's killed, but she's like, they probably died anyway, I killed someone, oh my god, how many people have I killed? And she goes into this full-on psychotic break where she actually, there's a content warning in here for suicide attempt, she does like attempt to take her own life because she's so distraught by what she's been doing in the system that she's been working under, and how can all of these people keep working under this system? That's why she decides there's no way they can know this. There's no way they can know if I show them. And there's this ridiculous thing where she does show them. She manages to put screens all over the city and show people every time they're using any one of these spells, they're killing plants and animals and people. And it causes this ridiculously wild revolt in the city of the Quen people. Like, absolute riots, people refusing to go to work, demonstrations in the street, physical violence, everything, right? Very French Revolution. But you have then all of the people in the upper class of society who have been making these crazy weapons being like, oh, I finally got the chance to use them. And so you're seeing, like, it's not just this like kind of story of like, oh, the people who are oppressed rise up and everything's fine. It's like, this is how it would actually happen in this type of society. And it's just so good. I'm not going to continue with the rest of it. I think there's some things that need to like not be spoiled, but Sayona decides after that she has to show that, and of course she gets arrested, and then there's a whole arc after that. And it ends exactly the way it needs to end, and I was so pleased with it ending the way that it needed to end. And I'm absolutely in love. I'm me and the rest of fucking Bookstagram are head over heels for this fucking book, right? Everybody got obsessed with it. It came at just the right time too, I think. And it's so pertinent and timely and literally obsessed. What do the girlies say? Gagged. Like, gagged, okay? Fucking this is seriously probably going to be in my top 5, if not my top book of the year, just based on my reactions to it in the moment and my reactions to talking about it right now. Like, Robin Hobb goes hard, but Robin Hobb's endings they struggle. Okay, she can write politics. I will never not be a Ronica Vestrick girly, but this does it all so succinctly in one book. Okay, one book. Hands down, if not the best book I've read this year, the best standalone. Because before this, it was probably Mad Ship. And I think this beats out Mad Ship because of it being so perfectly wrapped. Like, I literally can't get over it. So I'm going to leave it at that. Please read Blood Over Brighthaven. Please, please, please read Blood Over Brighthaven. If you have already read it, tell me what your thoughts about it. Talk to me about it, because I need to talk to somebody about this book. I've been talking to everybody on Instagram about it because I'm just like, it has me in a chokehold, okay? All right. Thanks for sticking around with me. I'll see you soon.